Welcome to the 100 podcast. It's Ed and Charlie here with you. Hope you're well. Today we're joined by Lancashire and Manchester original spinner Tom Hartley. Tom, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks, myself.
Yeah, we're brilliant. All the better for talking to you, mate.
Yeah, good to hear.
Yeah, cheers for joining us, Tom. First off, how does it feel to have taken the very first men's 100 wicket?
Yeah, it was something pretty special. Obviously, Josh had given me the heads up that I was going to bowl the first over. And obviously, pretty nervous and all that sort of stuff. But it was like, what's the worst that can happen? You know, no one knows how this game's going to go. So just to get the first wicket was something pretty special and obviously a bit unexpected, but I'll take it nonetheless.
What was it like being involved in that first game? Obviously, it was the women's game the night before, but it was basically a completely unknown quantity. You're bowling to Jason Roy, Sam Curran, Solomon Ryan, some really destructive batters. What was that like going out there and playing in the first ever game?
Obviously, it was a strange feeling. It was a bit of chaos. You know, everyone was like still learning the rules. We haven't played any practice games with it, so like after 5, some lads would be running to the other side of the field. But obviously, having the 10 there now, you can just stay where you are. But obviously, they do have the Invincibles do have a top class batting lineup, so obviously tough to try and keep them down. But at the same time, I never bowled at them, so they don't know much about me. I don't know much about them. No one knows what's a good score, how many do you need off the power play, all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot of unknowns, so it was kind of hard to be nervous just because you didn't know what you were doing was good, bad, indifferent, you know, just didn't know.
How have you found being with this original squad so far? Obviously, there's some familiar names in there for you with the likes of Matt Parkinson, for example. It seems like a really nice group to be a part of. How have you found it?
Yeah, no, all the lads have been great. You know, they're all a great group of lads, and I feel like although we've only been together a week or so, that first win the other night against the Phoenix just like helps everyone come that little bit closer. But obviously, like Carlos now, he's a great lad, you know, lovely, really gets involved with the group along with the others like Munro and Lockie Ferguson as well. You know, they're great lads and they're really happy to be here, and then obviously take the time to get to know you and that sort of stuff, which is lovely.
Of course, and I'm really curious. Obviously, you mentioned there's a lot of high-class quality in that squad. In your limited games so far, has it felt like a step up in quality from the Blast?
Yeah, obviously, the Blast is still a great competition, but obviously with the likes of all your overseas you got here, there's no like just loop one up hoping that they'll hit it for one. You know, it's going back over your head if you give it a bit of flight. So obviously, you've got to be on it every ball. And obviously, you just got to limit your mistakes because very easily they'll pounce on them, you know.
Your coach, Simon Katich, obviously a lot of franchise experience, a lot of experience of cricket, a very cool cricket mind. How have you found working with him and what's he like to work under?
You know, obviously never played with him before, but he, like before the tournament, he'd always like send you a message saying, well, I bowled today, or, you know, that sort of stuff, which was lovely. And obviously him coming here now, he's you know, I really do like playing for him. You know, he's very well organised. You know what you're doing in training. You know, takes the time to come and speak to you, see how you're doing. And obviously, if he's got, obviously from more of a batting perspective, you know, he'll come and like give you a few pointers and all that sort of stuff. And obviously, he's got a lot of experience under his belts. But I feel like he's been great with the lads so far, and we've all really connected with him.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Obviously, he's a huge name, and it must be great to work with him. I want to talk a little bit about your game now, Tom, and your, I guess, stats a little bit. So I apologise if I go too in-depth with the numbers here. But, I mean, your stats are quite fascinating. I mean, you are the most economical bowler in the Blast since your debut. You go to just 6.29 at the death. And globally speaking, you have the best balls per boundary rate in T20s around the world since you played your first game. And those are great stats. What is it about your bowling that you think is so hard to score runs at?
I don't know, to be honest with you. Obviously, a lot of the games are going with an attitude of, I just go in the attitude of going for least runs per over. So wickets, you know, although they're nice to take, it's not something that overly important for me. I probably get more enjoyment of just going for dots, singles, twos rather than boundaries. So basically, I just try and piss the batters off by not giving them anything to hit. And obviously if that works, then and then also it's about reading the batsman. So like to myself, I get a lot of people trying to like back away and hit through extra and that sort of stuff. So if you can pick up on little tendencies where they're looking to move their feet, makes things a whole lot better.
Yeah, you bowl a lot in the power play, and that's a very tough time to bowl, I guess, especially as a spinner at times. How do you go about that challenge, especially in this one where you might bowl 10 balls to some of the very best batters in the country?
Yeah, well, obviously, playing at Old Trafford, we don't really play that extra seamer. So obviously, there'll be myself, Parkinson, and potentially another spinner with only about 2 seamers. So obviously, one of us, Parky, doesn't really bowl in the power play. So someone has to make up them overs in the power play, and somehow that task has fallen to me. So obviously, first over, you can sort of get away with it. Some batsmen just like to get their iron a little bit, nudge the first one for a couple singles, maybe hit the odd boundary. So I more like to go like Yorker sort of areas, just to try and get on the bat a little bit. And then obviously, if it is spinning, I might pull my length back a little bit, try and spin a couple. And then obviously, I've been bowling 2 in the power play as well. So similar sort of plans. Obviously, but then with the 100 now, like you saw in that first game, if you get a wicket on your last fourth or fifth ball, I think captains are quite keen to get you to go another 5. So obviously, with the new batsman on strike, if you can try and pin them down, you can have a good second set.
Yeah, we saw that yesterday, actually, in the London Spirit Trent Rockets game. I think pretty much every single spinner that Spirit used, they all bowled 10 in a row, which was quite interesting. And I think going into the tournament, we were talking a lot about, how teams might be using those 10-ball spells. And I think we spoke a lot about maybe using seamers at the death, but it does seem like that spin bowling the 10-ball spells is the way forward so far.
Yeah, potentially. Obviously, if you have a good first 5, you're more than likely to have a good second set of 5. Just depends who's batting. Someone might line you up in them second 5. So it's quite a big risk, because if you go for double digits in your second 5, it's probably something you shouldn't have done. But obviously, the way their spinners bowled last night in the Rockets game, they're all bowling very well. So why not bowl them 5? It's tough for the batsmen to get them away, really.
Yeah, and I guess, like, talking about last night's game, we saw Matt Carter bowl very well. And I think, obviously, bowling with different arms, but you are relatively similar T20 cricketers in the fact you're both quite tall and you bowl a lot in the power play, which is very interesting. When you do have, I guess, that extra height, how do you go about using that when you're trying to bowl to batters?
Well, obviously, with the extra height comes the extra bounce. So I think that's where Carter's done well. He can bowl like a good length, but still get quite a lot of bounce from it. So obviously he's trying to hit batsmen sort of in the hip area, and it's just hard. A lot of batsmen get tucked up and, end up hitting a big shot straight up. And then obviously using your height, it comes from a lot higher angle than normal. So obviously some batsmen aren't used to tall spinners, and obviously it may take a little bit of time adjusting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking about Matt Carter. He bowled superbly well, and I'm going to circle back to that game again because there was just so much spin on off. I think Trent Rockets bowled 75 balls worth of spin. The Spirit probably about a similar number. I mean, obviously this is something that will work in your favour, particularly at Old Trafford. The pitches there, particularly in T20 cricket over the years, have been very spin friendly. You must be loving bowling on these slower pitches right now.
Yeah, I think the weather's helped it massively. Obviously, we've had a bit of a heat wave, so to speak, and pitch is very dry now. Which is very conducive to spin bowling. So, I mean, I'm all for it, really. As long as this rain stays away, I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah, this original spin attack as well, we've talked about it a lot. It must be a really cool group. Obviously, you work with Parky at Lancashire, and he's played for England. And then Colin Ackerman's injured, but another good spinner. Calvin Harrison has kind of come out of nowhere, I guess, playing a bit for Notts, and then really broke out in this tournament. That's a really exciting and young, and I think quite hungry spin attack. What's it like working with those guys, and I guess being a real strength for your side?
Yeah, obviously played a lot with Parky, so we know each other inside out, really. Obviously, we go about in different ways. I try and go a bit quicker, a bit flat, and obviously he's one to give it a bit of flight and make the batsman come at him a little bit. And obviously, if I can dot him down and he can take the wickets, or vice versa, I think it's a good combination. Obviously, now Calvin's come into it as well. He's similar. He bowls a bit quicker than Parky, but still bowls like into the pitch and still tries to give it a good rag. So obviously people have found it hard, especially like trying to take the game to him almost, because he's a hard batsman to score off, really.
Yeah, and you said Matt Parkinson is basically the polar opposite bowler to you in a sense. What's he like in the dressing room? What's it like working with him? Because obviously he's a high-quality bowler, you're a high-quality bowler, and it must be really fun, I guess, pushing each other and working together.
Yeah, and obviously it's been great fun working with him. Obviously we try and do different things. So his, in statistical-wise, his length is probably a bit fuller than mine, to try and get the batsman, playing cross-bat shots a bit more, while I try and push batsman on the back foot a bit more. But he's a great lad, knows spin bowling inside out. He's just a joy to be around. He's always a laugh as well.
Yeah, I do want to circle back around to what you said earlier, actually, about prioritising being, I guess, economical. It's because it's rare, I think, to hear a bowler speak so openly about trying to be a run-saving option rather than a more aggressive wicket-taking option. It's unusual to hear that. I guess that makes you quite an interesting prospect for teams, maybe franchise teams globally. Do you think that maybe, your skill set on this slightly higher stage in this competition, do you think that gives you a nice platform to maybe push for some franchise spots?
Well, hopefully, yeah. Obviously, if I can keep on doing what I've been doing, obviously, I felt like I've had a decent last tournament. And obviously, only 2 games into the 100, but, hopefully I can do what I've been doing for Lancs, and you just never know, really. Spaces and franchises around the world open up, and just got to be hoping that they're looking your way. And obviously, if I can keep my stats in a good place, with economy wise, and taking the odd wicket as well, I think hopefully, I'm praying it'll come.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you actually briefly, Tom, because I don't know if you knew this, but there is a fantasy league that Wisden do for the men's 100. And on that, you are the second cheapest bowling available option, which I found crazy. And so I put you in my team, and you are now the sole reason that I'm top of the league. So I do want to thank you for that, actually. But do you feel that you came into this tournament a bit under the radar? It feels that way, despite how much success you've been having for Lancashire.
Yeah, well, obviously at the time of the second draft, I'd only played maybe 10 games for Lancs and T20s. I'd done all right at them. Managed to keep my place in the team, but then obviously the coaches see something different, and obviously I think they put a bit of hope in me that I'd get better the next year as well. And I feel like I've done that, and though so sort of people have not really given me, maybe they've not given me much of a look, maybe they have, I don't know. But yeah, obviously people have obviously not tried to keep them pinned down, and obviously they've tried not to get on top of me. But whatever reason that may be, I'm just happy to be here.
Well, it's class, and you've had a great tournament, and well, best of luck for the rest of it. My final question, I guess, is what's the biggest difference that you've seen from the T20 Blast in playing in the 100? I guess, what are you enjoying most about playing in the tournament?
I mean, there's a lot of good things about the tournament. I think, obviously the standard's higher. Everyone's got great teams, but I think it's just, for me as a bowler, I don't know, it's a hard question to answer. I think it's just having the lads around, really. I think it's, it's nice to meet new people and, get out there and all that sort of stuff. And then obviously pitches 10 as well, I think it's been quite good for me. But I'm enjoying it all, really. I don't know if I can pin down one thing. I'm enjoying it all.
That's totally fair. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Tom. Best of luck for the rest of the competition. We're really enjoying your bowl, and well, hopefully you can take the Manchester Originals further onto the tournament. So best of luck, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Podcast100. We've got loads of clips there, loads of different stuff going on, so make sure to follow us there. And please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We'd love to know what you think, and it would really help us out. So thank you very much for listening to the 100 Podcast, and we'll speak to you next time.